I'm just going to go on to presenter view. So can everybody see?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so thanks, Eric, for that introduction. My name is Sinead Hennessy, and I work, as Eric has said, for Fáilte Ireland, who is the National Tourism Development Authority. I've worked in my role in food for coming up on 3 years, so I'm responsible for implementing the strategic plan around the development of food and drink experiences in Ireland. As Eric has said, I'm going to talk to you about our Food Champions programme. It is probably the most acclaimed. We get a lot of international requests on our approach to the development of food tourism, particularly the Food Champions programme, and it's something we're really proud of. So I'm going to start off by giving a little bit of context to, I suppose, how where this Food Champion program came from, and I suppose the scenario that surrounds, or the context that surrounds this program. So I think it's the same in most countries around the world. We know that tourist expectation around food and drink is changing. That's driven by the most part by intense social media around unique food and drink experiences now. I think now we can safely say we have moved from a scenario whereby visitors sought out foods that were familiar to what they ate back home, to now really, really seeking out food and drink that represents the places that they go to. So our research and research that we undertook, I think it's 2 years ago with Eric in the World Food Travel Association, told us that 50% of visitors now say that food is more important than it was 5 years ago. So the majority of visitors are now interested in where their food comes from. So research from the Food Board in Ireland says that 67% of domestic consumers are interested in the provenance of their food. And this search for authenticity and cultural experiences that are of a place. And I think our research tells us as well that for the majority of visitors to Ireland, we don't have that largest segment where the primary motivation is around food and drink, but for the majority of visitors to Ireland, they seek out local cultural experiences, and a lot of those cultural experiences can be experienced through our food and drink based activities. So for us, that means that everything we do, we have to, well, for us in Fáilte Ireland, we have to ensure that all visitors should be able to access great local food and drink anywhere in the country, and do so no matter what the budget. So we've broadened out our approach to the development in this area to say, okay, visitors, they eat 3 times a day. And we're getting an increasing number of visitors, like a lot of destinations, so we're really developing every single segment. Earlier this year, we commenced investing in food tourism development in 2011, so a number of years ago, and in January we launched our second food and drink development strategy in relation to the development of within this area. The rollout of the strategy is, for Ireland, we kind of have the country split into different leisure tourism propositions. So at the moment, well, this slide says that we have 3. We have the Wild Atlantic Way, which is the world's longest coastal touring route, relatively young at 4 years old, but it covers the west coast of Ireland from the Inishowen Peninsula all the way down to Donegal, and is very much a cultural brand, so it showcases lives that are shaped by the sea. Then we have Ireland's Ancient East, which is the orange section, just there in the middle of the country. That brand is based on stories, and we have Dublin there as well. And actually, just last week, we launched another proposition that covers the middle of the country. It's called Ireland's Hidden Heartlands. So whilst we feed in I suppose we develop nationally when it comes to programs and stuff like that, but we split our marketing and we split our content out into 3 different brand areas. So for food and drink development, we have 3 different investment pillars. The first one is insight and innovation. That is to ensure that tourism stakeholders are aware of the economic opportunity of offering a quality food and drink experience. And in a lot of parts, this is about devising actionable insights to inform development and investment in this area. And in a lot of ways, this piece is about convincing those tourism operators that actually good food and good drink is good for business. Then we have the second one there. It's called Strengthening Ireland's Appeal. And this, I suppose, focuses on our main challenge, the main challenge we have around food tourism in Ireland, in that the overseas perception of our food and drink experiences isn't that high overseas in comparison to how food satisfies visitors when they're here. So there's a big gap between perception and reality there. So whilst Ireland is getting recognised for its food products, so our butter and our whiskey, it really hasn't translated as Ireland is a great place to go for good eating and drinking experiences. So this investment area really kind of seeks to close the gap between perception and reality. So we invest in key promotional initiatives around that. The third one is driving industry capacity and performance. So this is our enterprise development piece, I suppose. And this is, I suppose, just about devising resources for food operators who want to move into tourism, so tourism capacity programs, and then tourism programs who want to develop and enhance their food offerings, so food capacity programs, I suppose. So we have a number of projects set out for the next 5 years under these investment pillars. The last one there is delivering great visitor experiences. And this is, I suppose, a focus area of the entire organisation, or the entire agency that is Fáilte Ireland. So for our part in food, we would look to actively contribute to that, be it for our main attractions, ensuring that the food and drink is of a very high quality and representative of place. And then on the other side, the ancillary, the supporting experiences, such as our growing food and drink based experiences. So when I start talking about the Food Champions program, you'll know that you'll see where they kind of feed into around that. So mostly the Food Champion program aims to develop or aims to enhance the yellow pillar and the red pillar. So strengthening Ireland's appeal and delivering great visitor experiences. So our experience offering is as so. This is who we would consider to be our stakeholders. So we've over 60 microbreweries in Ireland, massive influx and growth in the last number of years. I'm sure that's the same with many countries. A lot of gin distilleries and growing. 4 years ago we had 3 whiskey distilleries, and we now have 16 working whiskey distilleries. I think about between 12 and 13 of them have visitor centres now. So huge, and Irish whiskey is actually the fastest growing premium spirit in the world, so there's a huge amount of development in this area. We have 27 active food networks now, and these really have just emerged in recent years. We had 8 or 9 from, since we started working in food tourism, and now we have 27, so huge amount of growth there. We've over 60 food festivals, 160 farmers markets, 40 cookery schools. Our Michelin stars, we've 12, we've 26 bibs, we've 7,000 pubs which are prime for development, nearly 2,500 restaurants nationally, and 824 hotels. And I suppose just to say that 824 hotels isn't they're hotels on their own. We haven't included in this presentation the amount of accommodation providers, and of course are noticing a huge increase in primary food producers looking to diversify into tourism. So host-driven agri-tourism, meet the maker experiences. Our food networks are kind of dispersed in this way. So we have about, I think there's 9 there that we consider to be fully emerged, and really delivering a very good food tourism product or food destination offering. And we have about, I think, an additional 13 who are emerging. So there's a huge amount of activity in the yellow parts of the country. A lot of networks mobilizing, getting together, improving the offering. There's food strategies nearly for every region now, and a lot of experience like tastes of popping up all over the place, which is great. So as I said, in Fáilte Ireland, we have a national development strategy. We have a national remit. We're a large government agency. We have a huge amount of stakeholders. And I suppose where this has all come from, and I suppose the Food Champion Programme really did precede the current strategy. We started this about 7 years ago. And it was really to get this buy-in on the ground. So how do you translate a big government strategy to something that is actually real to our operators on the ground? So to engage our industry on a widespread national region, and to support the development areas within that. So at the moment, we have 20 food champions appointed across Ireland. We have 4, just kind of linking back to the brand proposition map that I put up earlier. We have 4 of those champions in Dublin. We have 8 in Ireland's Ancient East, which is the large orange area. And we have 8 along the Wild Atlantic Way, so that big long route on the west coast of Ireland. As I said, this programme commenced about 7 years ago. At the moment, we have 20 food champions. When it commenced, we only had 7. And we've had 34 go through the programme so far. So at the moment, we have 20. Just to say as well that our food champions are under the radar in terms of where they're placed in the food tourism world. So there's no real celebrity chefs or or any kind of scenario like that. These are really grassroots operators. They range in occupation from brewer to restaurateur to chef to we've educators in there, we've cheesemakers in there, we've shopkeepers in there. So they span quite broad from a sector perspective, from a food sector perspective. We have whiskey expert in there, and they are also dispersed all around the country. So they're a lovely mix of people. The role of the food champion, really, it's an input and output role, to put it simply. So they actively contribute to the development and delivery of our strategy. So for the strategy that we have now, there was a huge amount of consultation conducted with our food champions. I suppose as Fáilte Ireland, we really value the fact that they are our tangible link to what is happening on the ground. So we listen to what they say, and then they contribute or they help us to deliver our goals and our objectives. So they really kind of plug into their wider networks and ensure that our visions, our strategy is translated on the ground, essentially. So this is quite a large slide, but it kind of covers everything that the food champion is. So, sorry, now I'm just going to move this. So the Food Champion Programme, firstly, I should say that it is a peer-nominated programme. So 3 years ago, we went out to the nation and we asked the food industry and the tourism industry to help us by nominating their local food hero, essentially. So really it is a peer-nominated process. Then we got there was a campaign conducted around nominations. I think we got 400 nominations that we whittled down to the 20 that we have there now. Following that process, the 400 were sent over to independent assessors with the remit of balancing, regionally dispersing this group of people and balancing it through the sectors. And this is who we came up with. So they have to undergo a 3-year development program with us. This is what we give them just to set them out. So essentially, the transaction is they help us to, there's 4 key areas of it. They help us to spread the good word about Ireland's food experiences. This is at home and overseas. So, for example, we have a food champion going to the UNTWO gastronomy forum in Thailand, the end of May, to talk about the Irish food experiences along the Wild Atlantic Way. And a lot of our food champions speak internally at a number of conferences and summits in Ireland. And obviously, they plug into their own networks around what is happening on the ground with food. So the second area there is the little heart in the middle, and what they're asked to do there is they're asked to help us in Fáilte, Ireland, to plan, deliver and promote the best food experiences. So they are our live link, I suppose, to what is happening on the ground. So when we, particularly for our international media and buyer trips, so we host, in Ireland, we host about, I'd say it's about 1,200 media, international travel media per year. And we host, I'd say about 1,600, over 1,500 travel buyers per year. Our food champions tell us what is relevant, what is current, what is new on the ground in relation to food and drink. And they help us program those itineraries essentially. Then the third kind of piece up at the top, this light bulb, and they're asked to help each other. And I think this is one of the most outstanding pieces of this program, in that they are their own individual network. So once they entered into this program, we all went on the first year we went on a benchmarking trip to Denmark, where they really consolidated. So they contact each other quite frequently, I would say once a week, and they go to each other's festivals, they go to each other's events, they help they help each other with planning, and they're constantly in contact. So the actual mobilization element of this program is quite incredible. And I think, once they come out at the other end of the 3 years, they will continue to do that, which is great. Just down the bottom, then they attend. So we support the food champions to attend one benchmarking trip abroad per year. So that varies year on year. So we would meet with our food champions. We would contact them frequently, and see them at everything, because we all kind of go to the same things. But we'd meet with them 3 times a year, and at that stage we asked them how they'd like the benchmarking for the year ahead. This year, well, for the first year, we all went on a benchmarking trip to Denmark, and we reviewed Copenhagen and Aarhus. The second year, which was last year, they undertook individual benchmarking trips to pursue their individual projects. So last year we supported 17 different international benchmarking trips for our food champions, and this year we will be splitting it out into 3 different benchmarking trips, depending. So we've consolidated the areas that they're interested in. So the end of this year we will be going to the US, we'll be going to New York. They will be going to Terra Madre in Turin, and they'll be undertaking a benchmarking trip in Lisbon and Portugal. So we support them. We don't fully subsidize it, but we support them to go on a benchmarking trip each year the whole idea behind that, and I'll be talking more about this, is that they will collect or take in some fresh thinking for the industry, and feed that back into their networks when they come home, and also feed it into us so that we can share with the wider industry. Then just on the bottom left hand side of that infograph, they have to deliver a food tourism project. So the transaction really is they have to deliver something that for us, or for food tourism, that will contribute to one of the pillars that I discussed earlier. So the food tourism projects can be, and again, I'll be talking a little bit more as we move on through the presentation, they can be new events, they can be development projects, they can be networks, but they have to decide what they are. They feed it on into us, and we assist them and we support them through that piece. So another tourism project, or another project that a few champions have undertaken to deliver, would be an individual saleable experience. So I'll talk a little bit more as the presentation goes on. So essentially it's a 3-year cycle, after which they would have, at the end, they would have attended 3 international benchmarking trips and have delivered a food tourism project of significance for Ireland. There we go. I'm just trying to. Oh, okay. Sorry, my computer got stuck there. So as I said, really last year we supported, I think it was 17 international benchmarking trips. They went all over the world. Normally we support the accommodation and the on the ground itinerary, and they kind of have to make it there themselves. This year, as I said, they will undergo 3 separate ones, so they'll be bunched into 3 different groups essentially, and that'll take place in Q3 and Q4. Following that, they have to complete a full report, which is consolidated and delivered to industry. A lot of them actually do feedback as part of their networks, their regional network meetings, all of the insights and the fresh thinking from there. So these are the types of experiences that our Food Champion network is delivering. So I'll go into more detail. I'll be picking out some profiles I'll go into more detail with, but just to give you a sense of the projects that are coming out of this program. There's experience development happening down in Wexford, which is the southeast of the country. Really, there hadn't been too much development down there in recent years, so they're commencing a full development program, an action plan down there around food tourism, and around linking producer with the food service providers down there. A cabin food network has been established. That's another area in Ireland's ancient east. It's just above Dublin. Again, not too much work had been going on there previously, but they have prompted Gerard Lynch, who is our food champion up there, has started a food network. Haute Food Tour is something I think I'm going to be talking to you a bit more about on an individual basis. But Ketty Quigley, one of our Dublin food champions, has devised a specific food tour to disperse visitors outside of Dublin to our seaside towns just on the coast there, which was one of the strategic imperatives of the Dublin brand. Cork Character Cafes was delivered by Ruth Healy, which is one of our Cork food champions. She's the wildest not to go. So the Cork Character Cafes was like an event series where she got 12 or 13 local cafes in Cork to put on signature dishes that represented Cork food. That happened last year. Food the Waterford Way is a regional initiative that has been prompted by Claire Dalton. I'll be talking about that in a minute as well. Irish Feasts and Festivals is another category area for development. So Chris Malloy from from the north has put on a specific taste of Donegal's Wild Atlantic Way menu, where all of the ingredients from this menu is sourced from Donegal and from the coast of the Wild Atlantic Way. And he started that last year, and it's going really, really well. Taste of Cavan is a festival that had been developed as part of this programme. Boyne Valley at Oxford really was an Irish feast. So the Boyne Valley, which is a regional area of Olivia Duff, I'll be talking about her in a minute. It's a fairly established food network just above Dublin in Meath as part of Ireland's Ancient East. She brought at Oxford Food Symposium last year, she brought a taste of Boyne Valley. So she fed all of the delegates and speakers at Oxford Food Symposium last year and gave them a good taste of Ireland and the Boyne Valley food story. There's the Atlantic Long Table, which is an initiative of Mark Murphy. It's a long table event that happens in around Dingle and Kerry each year, and then there's the Sligo Food Trail, which was initiated as well from this programme. Feast is another festival that has come from a food champion called Kevin Ahern, and it is the reimagining of the Middleton Food Festival down in Cork. It's a really high quality local food festival. Iconic food and drink experiences. So the drinks have really dialed up in terms of output. So one of our food champions, Judith Boyle, she has an initiative called Legendary Tastings. She's based in Kildare, where it's basically an Irish drink tasting and storytelling session in her pub in Kildare. And from an international media and buyers perspective, it's really going down well. And then there's Irish food and drink pairings happening in El Mulligan Grocer in Dublin as an initiative of Shawnee and Sullivan. She's a Dublin food champion. Collectively, the food champions early last year got together and came up with this idea of running a campaign. This is in response to helping us change the overseas perception of Irish food as a really good food and drink experience overseas. They came up with this idea of, in advance of St. Patrick's Day, to run a campaign called This is Irish Food. It was kicked off really on St. Patrick's Day 2017. It ranked number one, it trended number one, which is very difficult on St. Patrick's Day. And it is something they've been collectively working on for the last year. So essentially what the campaign is they've encouraged the industry, visitors, domestic and overseas, to share their experiences of Irish food when they're in the country. And just those images there, I took a screenshot before this presentation, and that's essentially what is coming up. So it's really about busting the myths of corned beef and cabbage and showing the world what modern Irish food is about, essentially. These are just some more images from the campaign. So it is run across Instagram, across Twitter, across Facebook. All of those channels are managed on a rotational basis by the food champions, and it's gaining so much traction month on month. And they all, I may say as well, each of these champions do this on a voluntary basis, and there's quite a lot of work as part of it. So even part of their own development or their own initiatives, it's all done really on a voluntary basis. So for the next few slides, I'm just going to, I suppose, hone in on a few food champions to give you a sense of more of a drill down into what they're delivering for us and what they're delivering through this program. So the first one there is Jacinta Dalton. She has been a food champion for a number of years. She's an educator. She's head of department for the Department of Culinary Arts and Services at GMIT, which is the Galway Mayo Institute of Technology in Galway. She's actively involved in many food festivals and events along the west coast of Ireland. She's known quite well in Ireland for her advocacy around food producers. She's a member of the steering committee for Galway Council, and was one of the members that got or won the bid for Galway as European Region of Gastronomy in 2018. So she was heavily involved in putting together that bid and getting that designation. And as part of that, we supported her in her role as food champion with travelling internationally to bid for it. And you know, it's in full swing now this year. Galway as a Region of Gastronomy in 2018. The bid book is really, really ambitious. The development milestones are incredible, and they're making great progress through the programme. Then we have Olivia Duff. Olivia again has been a food champion for quite some time. She's quite the legend actually in Ireland in the food tourism space. She is a hotelier. She's based in Kells in County Meath. She's a hotelier. She's a farmer, and she is a prolific networker. So she has spearheaded the Boyne Valley Food Development Network. A number of years ago, when she first came into the food champion role, she wanted to, you know, really just consolidate what that area of Ireland had, and really shout about it, and she really has done that. We would consider the Boyne Valley to be one of our most established food networks. The food and drink, as part of the development process of this network, the food and drink offering there is quite incredible. And it's all thanks to I suppose to Olivia and her advocacy role as part of that development network. So she worked with a group of about 50 businesses in joining all the dots between producer and restaurant and bar. So if you go in there in destination, you will get a really, really good, really great connected food and drink experience. Great co-opetition there. So once they got that off the ground, they launched the Boyne Valley Food Series, which was over a specific period, a number of food and drink events. So rather than developing or delivering a big festival at one point in time, they spread it out over a number of weeks and delivered a number of smaller events. So the events ranged from long table dinners in the local brew house to food safaris. So they really, really brought the food story to life down there, and they continue to do so. They've just launched Discover Boyne Valley Flavors, which you can see up in the slide there. So I'd urge anybody to go in and have a look at what the offering is, because it's quite the creative expression just in terms of the type of events and stuff like that they offer. Then we have Claire Dalton. Claire is a brewer. She's a beer sommelier, and she's based in Ireland's ancient east in Waterford, just down in the southeast of the country. And Claire is involved in a number of, and I could say, the food champions individually, they're involved in a lot of projects. So Claire is involved in the Donegal Food Festival. She does a lot with her own beer brand, which is the Donegal Brewing Company. And she initiated Food the Waterford Way as part of her role as food champion. What Food the Waterford Way is a collection of stories behind Waterford's food story. And this is particularly positive because the brand that is Ireland's Ancient East is built on stories and storytellers. So what they have done around their food product is align that, and they've basically presented the stories behind the way they do food. So they've coupled storytelling with craft, and they run events, and they run events, and they go to other events with their offering as well. Ketty Quigley, I mentioned Ketty previously. Ketty owns Delicious Dublin Food Tours. She's French, moved to Ireland a number of years ago. And one thing that I suppose on an individual level, so Ketty's project has been developing her own serviced offering. But what is interesting about what Ketty has done is she has responded to the requirements of the brand. So there was a particular challenge in Dublin around capacity in the city centre, and there was a new brand launched there 3 years ago that aimed to disperse people to the mountains and the sea of Dublin, so getting people really out of the city centre at intervals during the day to free up congestion and things like that. So Ketty launched, in response to that, and as part of her food champion role, she launched Delicious Dublin tours out to have hot seafood. So previously she was delivering, she has a number of tours in the city centre, and as part of this she broadened it out and got people out to the coast. Then we have Niall Sabongi. Niall is a Dublin food champion. He's known quite well, or he's become quite well known for his work around seafood and sustainable Irish seafood. So he is massively passionate about the seafood around the island of Ireland. He has a number of restaurants in the city centre of Dublin, and has expressed Irish seafood in different ways and really high quality ways. He would say himself he's on a mission to knock the posh out of seafood. So he's about making Irish seafood very accessible. Our seafood industry in Ireland is mainly export focused. So he really is bring it back to Dublin, bring it back to Ireland. He's a huge advocate for seafood and kind of works around that. So this is a snapshot of our food champions and our food champion program. The current food champion program, with the 20 that were up there, they're due to finish the end of this year, after which they will become ambassadors. Some people always ask me what's the difference between a food champion and an ambassador. Food champions undergo an intensive program and connect with us intensively for about 3 years. After that, they become Fáilte Ireland food ambassadors, and we engage them. We leave them off the hook, and we engage with them once a year after that. So if you log on to fáilteireland.ie, find the food champion tab, you will get a full listing of all the food champions in there, what they're about, what they're doing, a full list of all the ambassadors as well. Also on there are their contact details, and the food strategy is on there as well. So there's lots of information online after this. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Sinead. That was fantastic, and some beautiful photography as well. Striking images. We do have a question, but and now also is the time for everyone else to type your questions for Sinead into the chat channel. Just hover over the lower part of the video screen, and you'll see the control panel up here, and you type into the chat window, and the questions will appear. Sinead, how do you facilitate constant contact with your food champions? There are 20 people all throughout the country. I would imagine email probably gets a bit tiresome after a while.
It does. Well, what we do, Eric, we used to work off email, but now we have a WhatsApp group, which is great. So all of us are in this WhatsApp, and you know, I have to say, there's a lot of communication on WhatsApp, so you could go and everybody actively participates in it, even as they're going about their day. So, for example, Patrick from the Firehouse Bakery in Wicklow, he would share. He is our baker, our food champion baker. So he would share what he's doing in the morning, or if they find something really interesting, that's constantly shared. Or if they're at a conference or if they're at a meeting and there's an immediate question, they'll put it up there. And actually, we're very responsive.
That's fantastic. I've not heard of a team collaboration through WhatsApp before, so that's kind of interesting.
Well, we were on email. We were quite formal, but then it became quite. There was a lot of email. There was an awful lot of email. So it's easier just for meetings and stuff like that. I'll put up a date. I'll do a quick poll on WhatsApp. They'll all get back to me within an hour, and it's just much easier.
Nice. All right, we have a question about whether this program was born by the, she says, Irish National Tourism Organization. So you might want to spend a second about how you divide what you do with Tourism Ireland, but how much of this was private investment? And she's looking at trying to do something like this in Poland, but the National Tourism Office there isn't quite getting it.
Okay. Like just in terms of investment, like the Food Champions, it is a voluntary scheme. So, the Food Champions, it is quite resource heavy. So it takes a lot of our time to manage 20 people who are united in passion about Irish food and what's happening and stuff like that. So the only real investment that we delivered or we give to this in Fáilte Ireland is their travel. The rest we support them in terms of mentoring internally and that kind of stuff, and they support each other. But we've been very clear with them, since they came into the program, they've been asked to sign up, and we've been very clear with them as well that they are their own network. So really, it kind of stops there. It kind of stops there for us. So they invest their time, and they invest, depending on the type of benchmarking they want to do, they invest their money as well.
Okay.
I'd be interested to hear that question. What challenges she or he are having with convincing, because outside of being quite resource heavy in terms of managing 20 people, actually the investment is quite minimal. The monetary investment on our side is quite minimal, and we would say what this enables and what this stimulates far outweighs the investment put in.
Yeah, it sounds like that Poland is perhaps not organizing it the right way or something. I don't know. I think every country has got its own situation, and maybe this will inspire Poland and some other countries to do it the right way. And we have a question. How many people at Fáilte Ireland are needed to manage the program?
Okay, so in the food tourism team, there's 3 people, and that is to manage the entire strategic program. So we would say that Fáilte Ireland as an agency itself is around 200 employees. So that's myself and another person who works with me would manage the program.
And the 3 clones of yourself as well, right?
Yeah. So it's day and night, unfortunately. A labor of love.
It is. Some of the best things in the world do take quite a lot of time to put together. But.
Yeah. But it's good. It's great, It's a huge, massively rewarding program. And actually, I find, personally, I find that you really get a sense of where the industry is at by just plugging in. I mean, we're at a stage now with the Food Champions that where it's quite informal, and the conversations are very honest. So if we're thinking and on both sides. So if we're thinking about developing a capacity program around something, we would always run it by the food champions, and they may say, actually, no, that's really too high level, or, you know, and we take that on, and actually that saves us time on the other side, you know. So it kind of works both ways.
Nice. Yeah, they can help share the workload a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like that's it for the questions today. So, Sinead, I would just like to say thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience and your wisdom. This is an excellent model, and one that really seems to be succeeding. You identified a challenge, and you put this together as a solution, and it seems to really be doing great for the Republic of Ireland. So thank you for choosing to share the information with us in our industry today.
Thanks, Eric.
And I would just like to remind everyone that we do have our session 9 coming up in just about 10 minutes. And this is a summit wrap-up of all of the learnings from the summit. And I, as your moderator, will be presenting that to you. So we will see you over in that room shortly. And thank you again, Sinead, and everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.